Welcome to my sewing room. We have such an exciting show for you today. The theme of our show is the wedding show. You know, I don't guess anyone loves a wedding any more than I do. I love to look at the flowers, the attendants' clothes. I love to see what the mothers of the bride and the groom are wearing. And most especially, of course, I love to look at the bride. Now, I've asked my daughter Joanna to be with me on the show today to model a wedding dress which we've had made. Joanna, thank you for coming today. And we have some ideas on this wedding dress that I'd like to share with you. First of all, I don't know whether you've priced wedding dresses lately, but the nightmare horror tales are one can spend anywhere from a minimum of about $600 up to $15,000 for a wedding dress. And you know, the last bride's book I looked at, it seemed to me the average price was about $2,500 to $3,000. Now, people, that has to be near insanity. And of course, if you sew, your wedding dress can be absolutely gorgeous, and it does not have to cost a fortune to be worn for about 3 hours, I might add. And it can be even more beautiful than those $2,000 and $3,000 wedding dresses. One of the objectives for this lovely dress we have for Joanna today was to look in the wedding books and to get some ideas of how the really expensive dresses were made, and then to go to one of the commercial pattern companies and look for the individual pieces and copy it at a cost that's much less. Now, I will tell you a little secret right at the end of this program, of this portion right here, how much this whole dress and veil could be had for, and it is a fraction of the cost of what it would cost to purchase one like this. The idea of the mantilla was around in the 50s. I don't know how many of you remember weddings in the late 50s. Guess what? It's back again, but only in the really expensive designers. We got the idea from a designer whose dresses run anywhere from about $5,000 to $15,000. We used illusion, just the $3 or $4 a yard kind, for the back part of the veil, and we actually went to the drapery department for the lace, which looks very much like the mantilla lace, the real McCoy. The dress is a straight dress. Once again, we did not use expensive lace. We went to the drapery department and got lace there, which is perfectly beautiful, but it didn't cost $102 a yard. The dress is very simply done. It's a straight dress, and it's an off-the-shoulder style, which is very, very in the wedding books right now. And let me show you how it's kind of held up. There's a little piece of elastic in here that goes right around the shoulder, and it's kind of hidden. And also the dress has bones and stays built in the bust line. Now, the veil is very just illusion. Now, there's a real interesting, Joanna, could you kind of turn a little bit sideways? Thank you. The train of the dress is attached, is attached right below the waistline, and it has just yards and yards of illusion in it, which gives a beautiful look and was very, very inexpensive to make. A little fish line treatment around the outside of the train is really interesting also, and it's terribly easy to do. And in a few minutes, I'll show you just how easy it is to do a train like that. Now, if you did not want to use the mantilla look here, by the way, this is just a little purchased headpiece, and it has a little comb on it, and the mantilla and the illusion is simply stitched on. I've even known some people that hot glue gunned the veiling on. Now then, if you didn't want to use the mantilla look, you simply could just do an illusion veil, very inexpensive and awfully pretty. Of course, the brides are always beautiful. Now then, I told you at the beginning of this segment I was going to tell you exactly how much money you would have to spend if you wanted to have this beautiful wedding dress, including the purchased headpiece, the dress, the lining, the cathedral length train out of illusion, and everything exactly as it is. I bet you've already guessed that I have a real surprise for you. You're right. This dress could be done, the materials and everything, for under $100. As a matter of fact, probably it's right at $100. That's a whole lot different than $2,000 or $3,000 spent for a wedding dress. I think it's beautiful. We have some nice tricks to share with you a little bit later on today, things you might use when making wedding clothes. And Joanna, thank you so much for being here today with me. Now, if you will go with me over to the technique boards, I have some ideas to share with you. Using lace and netting for weddings just seems natural. Here is a beautiful idea for a collar. Do you see the pretty smocking done on the English netting lace? This would be absolutely wonderful to use for bridesmaids or for flower girls, or a collar on a pretty linen dress for mother of the bride. This little bitty dress shows some creative ways of lengthening lace edging to make it into a dress fabric. And that's what I'm going to share with you right now, just how you do lengthen. If you want a lace dress fabric and you only have pieces of edging this wide, here's how you do it. On this beautiful English netting, which has bows, we can match it several different ways. One bow here, one bow here. In other words, don't match them evenly, move them off. And a way to attach these two, you see what I did? I pull one row of edging down on the other one, and I zigzag, following the scallops or the scallops on the edge. I zigzag all along there, and then after the zigzagging is done, you go back and you cut away the excess netting right there on the back. Now over here, I've illustrated lining the bows up exactly. And you know what? That's a pretty way of doing it also. What if you have insertion that is too narrow and you want wider insertion? Line it up, just butt them together and zigzag them. Once again, you can line them up not even, or you can line them up evenly. The choice is yours. Another way of making lace wider is to put a piece of lace insertion attached to a piece of lace edging, and all you do is lay one down on the other and zigzag, and then later on go back and trim it away. Okay, one more idea to make lace longer. And this, by the way, this shows just putting 3 pieces together. Actually, you can put as many pieces together as you want to. Just come in here and zigzag it, following that scallop or scallop, and then you will have wider lace. Now then, the last thing I want to share with you on making lace wider, you can put a piece of lace insertion to a gathered lace edging and make a beautiful ruffle. Here is what it looks like when we're all finished putting the insertion to the edging. And I'm going over to the sewing machine now to share just a few tricks with you on working with netting at the sewing machine. Do you remember on Joanna's train, the first thing we're going to work on, you remember on the train where it had I told you it had the fish line zigzagged on the edge? That's the only finish that whole cathedral train had, was just the fish line zigzagged on it. That is so easy to do. I've got my fishing line right here. I've laid it on the edge of the netting. By the way, this is just the inexpensive netting, and I've left about, a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. In other words, I've got my zigzag set on 4, my width on 4, and my length on 1, if I can hang on to this fishing wire here. And you know what I do? All in the world I do is guide that net, the fish line in there, and I zigzag with that reasonably wide zigzag, and it just rolls that netting right in there. Gosh, I'll just go as fast as I want to go on this one. It just rolls that netting right in there, and that's all you do to use that nice fish line finish to finish up the edge of your netting. Okay, now then, here we go. That was one of the tricks I wanted to show you. Now the next trick I want to show you is exactly how you go about, let me cut this off, by the way, you see there, and then you can just straighten it out, or you can leave it curly, either way you want it to be. Now then, this trick is kind of an interesting one too. In other words, how do you put insertion onto gathered netting? Well, it's really easy. First of all, you either use your gathering foot or 2 rows of gathering and gather up your netting, then simply place your insertion right down on top of the gathering line, and guess what? Come in here and simply zigzag it. I'm going to make the zigzag a little more narrow this time. Wait, let me see, the zigzag, we'll take it down. I had it on about a 4. I think I'll take it down to about a 2.5 to zigzag it on. And I simply zigzag, and always remove your pins. As I said, there's not a sewing machine manufacturer in the world that suggests sewing over pins. But all I do is lay it right down on top of the gathering row, and you can use the gathering foot on your sewing machine. That works great. But and just zigzag it down. Let me pull it over there and just zigzag it down. That's absolutely all there is to attaching the insertion. Now then, I want to show you one more thing over here. Look at this pretty little doll. This is a doll that was made for a bride, dressed for a bride, and it used a doll that she had had when she was a little girl, and the lady who made her wedding dress took scraps from her wedding dress and made the bride a dress. I think this is the sweetest idea, to actually use the same fabrics as the wedding dress, and she made, using the bride's doll that she had when she was a little girl, and she made a beautiful wedding dress. And now then, the doll and the materials from the wedding dress will always be there for this bride to keep at her home. We were talking about wedding attendance clothes. I believe that maybe we've probably spent too much money on taffeta dresses, which will never be worn again also. If you've heard the stories I've heard about these $200 and $300 dresses and the matching dyed-to-match shoes, probably $350, that really can't be worn again. My suggestion is, make something that can be worn again for the bridesmaids. This beautiful blouse is made out of silk dupioni. It's so easy to make. It only has the netting gathered around the collar, and then a little bit of netting and entredot beading on the sleeves. And put it with a skirt, a taffeta skirt, a velveteen skirt, a linen skirt, or silk dupioni skirt. And this blouse really is something that the bridesmaids can wear again, and it won't go in the closet with all those other taffeta dresses and the dyed-to-match shoes, which cost $40 or $50. Here is the sleeve. Here's how you fix this sleeve treatment. You gather the bottom of the sleeve, and on this particular sleeve, I have used entredot beading. Now then, I have gathered my lace edging, make a pretty little ruffle. I've simply attached the entredot beading using the serger method of doing that, and then I have serged the entredot beading onto the bottom of the sleeve, and that is how simple it is to just attach the entredot beading and the lace to this pretty sleeve. Let me show you this blouse again. Don't you see how nice that blouse will be? It's sort of one of those timeless blouses that truly can be worn to many, many occasions and for many, many years. Continuing on with our wedding show, I have a really pretty and very interesting quilt square for you. Lots of creative elements have gone into this beautiful, beautiful wedding quilt square. First of all, I've used a damask napkin, an old damask napkin for the base of the square. Here is a piece of crazy patch with all of the wonderful, glorious things you put in crazy patch. Several pieces of laces simply zigzag down. This is a little piece of antique, a little antique doily folded in half with silk ribbon embroidery in the middle and silk ribbon embroidery around the outside. Once again, over here, silk ribbon embroidery down the side of the lace, and some really cute little buttons stitched down with colonial knots and a pink silk ribbon embroidery. Here's how this went together. Your crazy patch goes over here right onto the damask napkin. Then put whatever strips of lace. Here's the little crocheted doily, just any kind of old doily that you don't use anymore. Get it and smush it together. Here's an old collar, zigzag down with silk ribbon embroidery. Just stitch your buttons on. And then after it's all finished, you can go back in and cover up any seams that you would like to cover up with a piece of lace, in this case a piece of Swiss, and a little bit more silk ribbon embroidery. Next, I have a doll with an absolutely beautiful netting wedding dress for you. Ecru netting is the fabric I chose for my little doll's wedding dress. Her bodice is so pretty with the overlay of lace and the little ruffle with the netting and the lace edging on the edge, of course her little dropped waist dress. Then this is a cute little skirt, I think. It has three gathered layers together, each one with edging on the edge, and then of course her little petticoat with edging on the edge of the petticoat too. Ecru on ecru is always one of my favorites. The bodice of that dress everything is done on a base of netting. In other words, here is the bodice to the dress. Okay, if I want to put the netting overlay on it, or excuse me, the lace overlay on it, I'll put it on and then come down here, zigzag my lace insertion on, and then I trim away all of this extra edging right here in order to put my ruffle on. That was how I did the bodice of the dress. This little skirt is really pretty easy too. I make 3 ruffles of netting and put 2 rows of gathering in each one of them and go ahead and gather them up for a little fullness. Then 1 row comes right over the top and zigzag it down. The next row comes right over the top and zigzag it down, and that's how you make the little triple tiered skirt. Next, I have a silk ribbon embroidery stitch for you. It's called the sweet pea stitch. I'm pleased to have as my guest today Kathy Brower. Kathy is senior editor of So Beautiful magazine and has a wonderful silk ribbon embroidery stitch for you. Welcome to the show, Kathy.
Thank you, Martha. Well, today, once again, I don't have a stitch. I'm going to show you how to make a flower that you attach later and then embellish. But I've got a funny story behind this. No one told me I needed to be a gardener to do silk ribbon, but you really do. So I go to my garden expert, Margaret, and when I made this stitch, I went to Margaret and I said, Margaret, what does this look like? And she says, well, that looks like a sweet pea. And I said, okay, well, that's what I'm going to do. So I purchased this linen and I made my vines, and I said, now, sweet peas grow on vines, right? And she says, yeah. So the only wide ribbon I had was light blue, and I thought, well, how perfect for the wedding show, have something blue. So I go to her and I said, well, here's my sweet peas. She goes, those aren't sweet peas. Sweet peas aren't blue. So these are my fantasy flowers. So anyway, let me show you how you can make these. First I need to show you my sample. We purchased this beautiful Battenberg round pillow and just embellished it with a vine with our Japanese ribbon stitches. And here are the sweet pea flowers, each one in the corner. Now let me show you how to make those. First of all, you take this is a 13 millimeter ribbon, and you will fold it in halfway, one side in halfway, and fold the edge down. And pin that because it'll flop out of your hands if you don't. You take the other one end and you fold it down and you pin them both together. So you have something that looks like that. Now, you take a needle and thread that's already knotted, and what you want to do is start stitching. You want to take little tiny tack stitches all the way across here. I'm using a beading needle because I can take a lot of stitches all the way across there, and you want to catch all the stuff on the back, all of the fold downs. And we'll work it all the way across here. See, I can do the whole thing before that's a pretty long needle. So it just helps, but you can pull it through even if you have a smaller needle. So I've got it gathered all the way across. I'm going to take my pin out. And you see those little tack stitches across there? You just want to pull them up. Let me get to the end of my knot and gather it. And then you'll have a little fluffy 2-layer flower. Right here, I've just taken the thread, the same thread that I gathered it with, and tacked it to my fabric. Then I'm going to take a 7 millimeter, I'm using a 7 millimeter green, and I'm going to just simply place a straight stitch over that to cover all that up. And you fluff it. You might want to take 2. This one looks like it's going to need 2 straight stitches. And then after that, I just add my stems or add it to a vine. Usually I do my vine work first and then I add the flowers. And it's as easy as that. Makes a great flower.
You know what? That is a cute flower. And who's to say that there aren't some blue sweet peas? Certainly there are some on this wedding pillow, aren't there?
It could be morning glories. That's what I'll call it.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy, so much. Next, we have a wedding magic pillow for you. Three different types of silk were used to make this wedding magic pillow. Why did I call it wedding magic? Well, as you can look at the pillow, I think you see maybe there's a little pocket right in here, and you see there's a little pocket over in here. Maybe you could tuck your wedding handkerchief in here, or something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue, and maybe tuck away the garter for safekeeping over here. The pillow has a really interesting piping, heavy fat piping around the edge, and here's how easy it is to make. The 2 little pieces that go on either side are lined. In other words, you cut your little pie-shaped piece and you line it, you turn it right side out, then it's ready for the trim to be butted around and zigzag to the edge of this piece. This other piece, which is also lined, has tatting that is put down on the very edge here, simply zigzag down, and then I have some pearls. Do you remember another show we talked about the pearl or the piping foot? Just put the pearls on the very edge and zigzag the pearls, and then I have one layer and the other layer, and one quick trick on this piping. You know, when I pull this out, it looks like I have a snake in my lap, but anyway, I just did want to show you this trick. I have some fat cording in there. I put it in the silk dupioni piece of piping, and I'm going to stitch. Here's where the cording stops, but I'm going to stitch over about 1 inch. You know why? If I leave that much puffiness, when I pull the cording, and make it puffy, it simply makes it puffier and prettier. And then I've got plenty of space to sew it down too, but that's just a real interesting look where you don't stitch right next to the piping. Next, I have a craft for you. I love this little box. It is white on white, all kinds of goodies. All of this project is totally and completely glued. There are no sewing whatsoever on this project. There's a little handkerchief, another piece of a handkerchief, a doily, a little button with a little ribbon. Turning the box, you can see it's lined in a pale brown satin. This lining is so pretty. Do you see how everything is just glued in there to make it wonderful? Do you see the way that the handkerchief has been brought over the front? And there's another little piece of handkerchief. Really interesting is the back of the heart part of the box with ribbons, more ribbons, a little bit of trim, a little bit of tatting, and then some braid around the bottom. This box began with simply a purchase box. This one is kind of a plasticky cover box, and that's the way it started, with a purchase box. Then all the different goodies were arranged and chosen. The brown taffeta to line it and line the whole thing. I do have one little trick for you here. And working with braids, they sometimes fray at the end. This one's just all frayed at the end. When you're working with a piece of braid on any project, if you will take a little piece of Scotch tape and simply put it over the ends, I think you will find that you will keep from ruining some of your braid, and it will just keep it in a better working condition. Otherwise, it will end up getting frayed and more frayed and more frayed. The little collar can be used. See, just point out a little piece of little collar. This is a pretty handkerchief. Actually, you could use the motif on either side of the handkerchief and make two of these little boxes. These cute little butterflies are available at some of the craft stores out of Battenberg. That would be sweet to put on the top. And of course, you can always have a spray of pearls. I seem to enjoy a spray of pearls on almost anything crafty. Once again, the little top of the box, it's all glued. It can be as personal as you want it to be. And you know, this would not only be pretty for a wedding gift, it would be awfully nice for a Mother's Day or maybe a 16th birthday present for somebody that you really love. Come along with me to my attic where I will show you a beautiful wedding dress, or what might have been a wedding dress from around the turn of the century. I cannot even guess how many hours it took to make this particular dress. The scalloped edge right here, see those lovely stitches that go all the way around the bolera and they go all the way to the bottom of the dress? They were done by hand. This dress probably was a wedding dress. It has a little bolera top. Let me turn it around and show you. See, this is a little bolera top that is completely removable if you'd like to remove it. And then the skirt, by the way, the dress is all cotton netting. And the skirt has 4 tiers of the most beautiful hand stitching you've ever laid your eyes on. These gorgeous scallops that go all the way down the bottom. Now, I do have a trick to tell you. If you have one of today's modern computer sewing machines, most of them you can build in a scallop that looks exactly like this and make your own, and you have a dress for in a fraction of the time. All the way down on the bottom, there's tier number 1, tier number 2. See, it's put together almost like our little doll dress with all the little tiers. Tier number 3 and tier number 4 with the prettiest hand stitching you've ever seen. You know, sometimes perfectly plain is the most elegant. I'm going to pull this dress down one more time and let you just see what it's like on the front. I really think that a dress made like this for today would be absolutely beautiful. Perfectly plain and yet ever so elegant. Thank you for coming to my wedding show today. Thank you for joining me in my sewing room, and I'd like to invite you to be with us next time.